Well, moving on, we are heading towards the end of the school year, but there's still a lot of work to be done at Detroit Public Schools Community District. There's a new superintendent coming, and the end of the EAA, which means those schools in that turnaround district will be back under the DPSCD umbrella. Interim Superintendent Alicia Merriweather says there still needs to be focus on one important point.
It's not enough just to keep schools open. We need to keep pushing towards excellence in every single school. And until that's accomplished, the work is not done, right? So there's lots of things left undone. I do think a path has been laid. The academic plan that was developed with over 200 people assisting, including focus groups from universities and community members, that has laid the course. And if we stay on that course, those 5 pillars of literacy, innovation, career pathways, family and community, and wraparound services, if everything in this district continues to be focused on those 5 pillars, I'm confident that we will see genuine, authentic, and continuous growth towards proficiency over the next several years. But it has to stay focused. We cannot have all of these different plans going all of these different ways. Everyone needs to be focused, understand what the plan is, stay the course. One of the things that's said about Detroit Public Schools Community District is, you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expect different results. I would argue that this district has not been allowed to do the same thing over and over for any length of time.
What's the cause of that?
Well, we've had 5 emergency managers in 7 years. We had state management 16 of the last 20 years with multiple different leaders. And so all of those things, every time you have a new leadership, there's this risk of a turnover and churn at the top, and then that obviously trickles down all the way down to the classroom. And until we can stay focused and keep everyone aligned on what the goal is, the strategies to get there, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, aligning our partners, aligning our resources, until we can do that with fidelity, you're not going to see proficiency, you're not going to see accelerated growth. And we need accelerated growth because we have gaps that require accelerated growth, not just 1 year's growth in 1 year's time. You're really talking about 2 years growth in 1 year's time, or 3 years growth in 1 year's time, if we're going to close those gaps.
A lot to do. Nolan, talk to me a little bit about what you think the challenge is going to be with bringing in now these EAA schools are going to be brought back into the DPS, and the challenges they're going to be facing there.
It's bringing back the EAA schools, which started out as some of the worst schools in Detroit, as well as bringing up to proper level these schools that were scheduled for closing because they had been failing for so long. They've got an enormous academic challenge. I think she's right. There's not been any consistency, and you do need a plan that everybody locks into and stays with. I think it would be wise for the new superintendent to make Alicia the chief academic officer and let her push this mission. She's very passionate about it, but I mean, she sounded an awful lot like the governor did 5 years ago when he started the EAA and said all these very same things. And here we are now, another failed experiment. They can't afford to keep having experiments that go awry.
Especially if you've got kids in a school and it's like, wow, that was an experiment on my child that did not work. What are the challenges that they're facing now in bringing these kids back into the fold?
Well, we're now on a statewide basis on something like the 3rd or 4th study coming out that's going to tell us what we need to be spending and doing to educate children adequately. There's an Oakland County Research Collaborative study that's going to come out about what schools need to be doing to educate children. They all more or less said the same thing. The Governor's Commission, the Adequate Education Study. We need to be spending more money. It costs more money to educate children who come from poverty, children who are English language learners, children who have in special ed. This stuff costs more money. There's a lot of research out there, peer-reviewed research that shows how you can effectively teach children who come from these different circumstances. And what we seem to keep doing is sort of studying the problem instead of providing teachers and school districts like DPSCD the resources they need to do the job.
Yep. All right. And finally tonight, Nolan, I want to give you a chance to talk real quick. You were in Lansing last night, and you did a screening of Pathways to Prison. And Nancy, actually, you were here on the show, and we talked a little bit about that a couple of weeks ago. Who was up on the panel?
Well, we had a lot of legislative staffers, some lawmakers in the audience. We had some corrections folks and advocates in the audience. The panel was Senator John Prose, who has done some remarkable work in the Senate, David Langdon in the House, Representative Justice Bridget McCormick was on the panel, Barbara Levine, who was in the movie, and Yusuf Shakur, who was in the movie, a former inmate who is now advocating for prison reform. It was a good panel.
All right, get people talking about a little bit of criminal justice reform. Nancy Kaffer, thanks so much. It's good to see you as always.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
All right, and that is going to do it for MiWeek. You can read Nancy Kaffer in the Detroit Free Press as always. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and of course, MiWeek.org. Make sure you come back. See us next Thursday for another MiWeek. I'm Christy McDonald. Take care.